Over the last 25 years, I've had the privilege of interviewing and highlighting some truly interesting people. I mean, everyone who is anyone, both the famous and the infamous, from presidents and their first ladies to kings and queens, movie stars and pop stars, captains of industry, heads of state, sports personalities, innovative entrepreneurs, and some pretty fascinating everyday people. Today, I am proud to introduce you to Jamie Richey, who says his own personal experiences obligated him to give back and help others. September is National Recovery Month, and he's here to talk with us today about what he's doing to help. Jamie, it's such a pleasure to say hello to you. And I guess we should jump right in, sir. I've heard that you've had some personal experience when it comes to addiction and recovery. With September being National Recovery Month, I know this is a very important time for us to focus the spotlight in this direction. Tell us a little bit about your life story that'll help others.
Sure. Thank you very much, Star. I appreciate that introduction and for you taking the time to speak with me today. So, yeah, I was born in a middle-class family, just working class America, salt of the earth type family. And, things went well throughout my childhood. But when I was 17, my father got killed in a motorcycle wreck. And it was very tragic for me and traumatic for me. And I turned to drugs and alcohol and partying and anything that I could do to numb that pain.
Okay.
And, as the years went on, it developed into more serious drugs. And I eventually got hooked on opiates and painkillers, and it just snowballed out of control. And a decade later, I was a full-blown drug addict, near destitute, hopeless, depressed, got to the point to where I didn't even want to live anymore. And I genuinely thought that suicide would be a better option than to continue living in the life I found myself trapped in, struggling with addiction and other mental health issues such as depression and anxiety. And it was a miserable existence. And so on June 6th of 2016, I walked into my closet and I got a rifle that I had used for hunting. And I went outside and I shot myself in the chest in a suicide attempt. I had to be airlifted. I was in a coma for several weeks, and I barely survived, but I did, and I think I'd survived for a reason. And I believe that is so that I can use my experience to reach out and give back and to try to prevent that next death.
Jamie, I have to tell you the story I wish I could say is unique, but you and I both know it's not. In our country right now, so many young men and women, when faced with a fork in the road, if there's been any trauma in any way, they can go to the left or go to the right. And it is absolutely imperative that there be somebody on that path that can help them make those right choices. And I am grateful that you have seen recovery in your own personal life, but I know so many other people are grateful that you've taken that and turned it in to the village of giving back, because you now work at Magnolia Ranch Recovery, helping people just like yourself. So tell me how that happened.
Yes, ma'am. So, once I got into recovery and I went to treatment myself and I got out and I had to start my life over again in my late 20s. Mm-hmm. I started working at an all-male treatment center located in Mississippi. And I started as a part-time behavioral health technician and worked my way up through helping people in different positions there at that treatment center. And after a couple of years, I was contacted by Magnolia Ranch. Honestly, Star, I never thought that I would leave the place I was at. But once they contacted me and told me about their program, I was just absolutely amazed. I'd never heard of anything like what they do. And I went for an interview and met the owner, and I knew then that this was going to be the place that would be my home, that we were helping people in a way that I've never seen a place be able to before. And so here I am at Magnolia Ranch, and we're doing everything we can to, help.
What do you think separates Magnolia Ranch from other treatment facilities?
Well, I'll try to put it in a nutshell, but the state of addiction treatment in the country is not that good. There are some centers that prey on people in their most vulnerable time. And you can watch the news. Treatment centers are getting shut down and raided every other week. But even the good ones, they will put 80 to 120 people in one building. They'll have therapists, good therapists, but they've got 15 to 20 people on their caseload. They give the patients one individual session a week for 4 weeks. And it's almost impossible to tackle a disease that is this complex in that short amount of time. So what Magnolia Ranch did was we bought a beautiful campus, and we hired the staff that could run a 60-bed facility, and we decided to only treat 14. So we have one of the nation's best therapists to client ratios. And on top of that, we decided, instead of one individual session a week, to do 3 individual sessions a week. And you combine that with our equine program, 24 horses on the property, which is amazing, and it's helping a lot of people. But it's just a smaller, more personalized, more clinically intensive program. And we're helping the people that have been to treatment 2 or 3 times at some of the bigger, more traditional places. They're getting overlooked. They're falling through the cracks. Mm-hmm. They come to us. Our therapists aren't loaded down with 20 other patients. They're working with 2 or 3. And then we sit down with them multiple times a week instead of just one. And we're really starting to break ground on why people are using, because at the end of the day, the drugs aren't the problem. The problem is some underlying issue as to why are you using the drugs. And that's what we're here to do. That's what we're here to find out.
And addiction falls into many, many forms. I consider myself a recovering food addict because at my highest weight, I weighed over 300 pounds at 5'5", and that's just simply not a healthy weight for a woman at 5'5". And it was one thing to take control and be able to lose the weight with the help of my doctors. But the most important thing was getting doctors that helped me understand why I gained the weight from the beginning so that I would not relapse and regain the weight. And so, Jamie, I'll ask you the question that I always like answering. How long have you been a recovering addict? And I know you'll say that with pride.
Yes, ma'am. So after the incident when I shot myself, of course, I was on prescription pain pills from the injury.
Which scares me a lot, because you and I both know that's how a lot of people actually start their addiction.
It was how I started.
Mm-hmm.
And so I didn't have a choice for a while. I had rough physical therapy. I had to learn to do so many things over again. To this day, I'll never move this arm at the shoulder. I have mobility from the elbow down, but this cannot be fixed. Mm-hmm. But so after that, it was September 1st of 2017 when I was able to finally go to treatment. And from that point on, I haven't looked back. So that was the turning point. And my birthday was August 31st. And so the very next day is when I'd had enough, and I had to get off the pain pills. And I knew that if I didn't, I was going to repeat this suicide attempt because it was just miserable. And I'm glad that you brought up the food addiction, because that's what we focus on, the disease of addiction. It's not what drugs you're using. Mm-hmm. It's not even, it could be food. It could be sex. It could be gambling. It could be technology.
It could be alcohol. It could be anything that takes you off your everyday regular path and becomes toxic to you. That is your drug of
Absolutely.
choice.
Yes, ma'am. That's correct. And so we're trying to treat the disease of addiction, not just remove substances from people's lives, whatever in whatever form they appear.
Jamie, what I love that part of what you do is really helping people at their lowest. And there's a quote that I read years ago. Napoleon Bonaparte said, "Courage isn't having the strength to go on, it's going on when you have no strength left." That just sticks in my heart and in my soul, because it's exactly what you're talking about. How do you then reach these people and lift them up when they have no strength left?
I open up, when I am transparent, when I'm completely honest, when I speak with that addict or alcoholic or the mother or the husband, whoever it is, and I say, look, I have been here. This was my experience. This is how I made it out. And if you will let me, I will show you how. And that has always been the most powerful thing for the people that I work with, is just letting them know that I understand, and on a very deep level. And once I do that and I can connect with the patient, then they open up and now we can begin work. And so that's never failed me.
Absolutely. And I mean, I ascribe to the whole concept, when your past calls, don't answer, because it has nothing new to say to you. I'm not living in the past. I'm making sure that I am walking towards my presence. And it seems as if you're saying to the patients and the people that you're treating, the only person that they're destined to be is the person that they decide to be. And so once they make a decision that they're not going to be that person who is, quote, an addict, then that's the first step in your recovery. We've spent a lot of time talking about the addiction part of your story, but not a lot about the suicide part. That's about as low as you're going to get as a human being, to not want to be here anymore. And I know that you delivered the keynote speech at the last suicide prevention conference. That had to be an amazing experience. Jamie, what was it like for you having yourself attempted suicide in the past?
It was powerful in ways that I'm not sure I can articulate. But I remember when I was asked, I just agreed, and I tried not to think about it because I knew I would get nervous, and I just knew I had to go up there and tell my story. But when I got there and it was time for me to go on that stage, it just kind of hit me, like the whole journey, because, like you said about not answering the past, I was just moving forward. And at that point, right before I went on, I was able to stop and look at the journey that had gotten me here. And all I could remember was that feeling when I was holding that gun in my hands. And I thought about it. Do I want to continue living? I did the pros and cons of life or death. And at the end of it, the death pros stacked up. And that is something that a human soul, once you experience that, like you said, there's no lower desperation. And for my journey to have gone from that moment when I did not think that I possibly had a reason to live, to having the purpose of being on that stage and to potentially helping the hundreds of people in that crowd, it was just very moving. And it felt like, to me, Star, I was like, this is why I didn't die, that I do have a purpose, that God did have a plan, and that I am right where I'm supposed to be, doing what I'm supposed to be doing. And it was just, it was powerful, and it was a moment that I'll never forget.
Jamie, it's very much needed. I'm sure last year set the record for overdose in America, with 90,000 souls lost to this disease. And I guess since you are helping me with a master class in this area, what do you think are some major factors contributing to addiction in the general public? And tell me whatever recommendations you have to help people who are listening and watching today. And by the way, I'm going to be putting up the website for Magnolia Ranch. I want to make sure that everybody has access, as well as the National Addiction Hotline. We want to make sure that we're being supportive during Recovery Month. So talk to me about just addiction in America, if you don't mind.
Sure. Star, in 2018, addiction and the opioid epidemic was on the news every week. And money started getting poured into this, and people became aware of it. And for the first time in 4 years, in 2019, the overdose dipped a little bit. And we were really excited about the trend that was going. The stigma was being broken. People were aware of what was going on. And then COVID hit. And you could not have created a more perfect storm to exacerbate addiction in this country than what happened with COVID. So many different factors, the isolation, the stress, losing loved ones. It was the worst thing that could have happened to this community. So you had a group of people that were in recovery that now can't attend their aftercare programs, their 12-step groups, or their faith-based groups, or their therapist, or whatever they were doing. We had many, many relapses during COVID. People were stuck at home. They were isolated. They were losing loved ones. Everybody was stressed. Everybody was afraid. And you couldn't have asked for anything to make addiction worse than what happened. And so it's been really rough. A lot of facilities have closed their doors. A lot of places have tried to adapt and do telemedicine. But there's something to be said about the bond in person, especially when talking about addiction. There's something about a group of addicts in recovery helping each other that is almost can't be matched. So that's kind of what happened. And if I had a suggestion to help, is for people to keep that in mind. There are services. If you don't want to go in person, I have tons of services that are online. There is help out there, but you have to ask for it.
And that's what I want to do right now, because Jamie, I really want to make sure that your message gets out there and that you are helping people. So for the listeners, the watchers out there who need help, either for themselves or a loved one, how do they get in touch with you? How do they get access to services? Give me some 800 numbers, some online websites, so that we can put them out there for people to access. Sure.
So the website is www.magnoliaranchrecovery.com. My email is jamie@magnoliaranchrecovery.com. And my phone number is 662-321-8690. I answer 24/7, 7 days a week. You can ask my girlfriend. And, date night gets ruined often, but every time I get a call, every time I get a patient, I remember when my finger was on the trigger, and that's how I treat everybody that I come in contact with, because I know that it could be any second. So email or phone call is the best way to get to me directly. And I'm happy to help anyone out there. If I can't get you to Magnolia Ranch, I will find you help. And that is a promise.
What is the one thing, finally, that you'd like the listeners, the viewers, to take away from your life story?
There were many people who gave up on me, my sister, and all we needed was an opportunity and the right resources for the people that could help us. So if there's anyone out there listening, if you're struggling, don't give up. There is help, and there is a freedom. There's a way out of this. And if you've got a loved one, I know it can be very difficult to love an addict or an alcoholic, but don't give up on them. Be there for them, support them. And if I can help you, I'm always available.
Jamie, we thank you so very much for your dedication, for your openness about your own struggles, and we're grateful that you have been able to come through it. And if I could give one piece of advice, even based on what you've said, I would say don't let your past steal your present. There's still so much left for all of us to do. Thank you so very much.
Thank you, Star.